If you've been thinking about getting serious with your money, like actually serious, now's the time. The Motley Fool is offering new members 50% off their iconic stock recommendation service, Stock Advisor. This is the same service that's crushed the market with recommendations that have returned 1,057% since inception, compared to the S&P 500's 180% over that same period. This isn't guesswork. The Motley Fool has a track record of finding companies before they become household names. So if you want to invest smarter and you like saving money while doing it, go to fool.com/listen to claim your 50% off discount off a 1-year term of Stock Advisor. Again, that's fool.com/listen. Returns of 1,057% are from the Motley Fool's product Stock Advisor and measured against S&P 500 returns of 180% as of July 10th, 2025. Past performance is not an indicator of future results. All investing involves a risk of loss. Individual investment results may vary.
If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies, inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Welcome to the Shabby Detective, yet another Columbo podcast. I'm your host, Mike White. Joining me is Sergeant Major Chris Dashew.
That's my Richard Basehart at the end of this. Just whatever that is, it's a decision, and he makes it, and the episode's better for it.
We are talking about the 4th episode of the 2nd season, Dagger of the Mind. It aired originally on November 26, 1972, one of the 92-minute episodes from this season, directed by Richard Quine, story by Richard Levinson and William Link, and a teleplay by Jackson Gillis. We have Columbo making a road trip. Woohoo! Going over to the UK, buddy, and he's going to hang out with Dr. Bombay. Actually, if I say that, Chris, do you know who the hell I'm talking about when I say Dr. Bombay?
I am super confused as to what episode of the show you watched, because the episode that I watched had Morgan Woodward and James Gregory in it as well, and Leonard Nimoy was in it, and Shatner. There is literally a Star Trek episode with the exact same name. From TOS.
Yeah, they did like their Shakespeare reference.
They sure did. Joking aside, why this had to be set in London is beyond me. I guess Peter Falk wanted to go to London and had to want somebody else to pay for it, which, hey, you know what? Fucking rock and roll, man. I'm for it. Bilk everybody for everything. But outside of the forced setting of London, which adds effectively nothing to the story, other than, I guess, giving us a justification why there could be British actors in this, which they don't need a justification. It's a what? I don't understand why it's set in the UK, but outside of that, this episode's a lot of fun. It's pretty convoluted, and I think that the conclusion or the how catch 'em is pretty... It wouldn't stand up in a court of law.
Maybe a British court.
Yeah, well, it's a fucking kangaroo court. Like, no, I'm just joking. Friends in the UK, I don't know what your political fucking judicial criminal system, I don't know what it is. I don't know how this would actually work, but I will say this much. How we get to the point where we get at the end of this episode is immensely unsatisfying, but everything else is pretty fun.
Our murderers are Richard Basehart, Gypsy's favorite actor, Richard Basehart, and then we've got Honor Blackman as his wife-ish. I mean, her name's Lily Stanhope. He's Nicholas Frame, but they sure act like husband and wife, and I'm getting real Liz and Dick vibes out of these two, especially when he shows up at the theater completely soused out of his mind.
I love when he shows up. I love Honor Blackman. She's great. She's pussy galore, right? Like, for most people, if you've seen that era of Bond, she's going to be immensely recognizable. But the fact that I recognize her from something else and was thinking about that role more than anything else did not hurt my ability to enjoy a very different role, because it's a very different kind of character. I'm not knowledgeable about her outside of Bond and that she had a career in film. Like, she's not someone that I go out of my way to watch, but I enjoyed her in this. Now, Richard Basehart, on the other hand, what a performance. That's all I'll say. He's at 11 throughout.
She's giving him a run for his money, though.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying bad. Like, he's like Ray Milland in The Greenhouse Jungle, but I actually enjoy his performance. Like, it's dialed up to 11 and then just left there. Like, he's so just like sneeringly British. He's painfully British, as one might say.
Cameo alert, Harvey Jason as the director of the play that they're both in. Harvey Jason, we will be talking about him tomorrow night when we talk about Night Gallery with Father Malone. We've already talked about Harvey Jason when we talked about Gumball Rally. He was the Hungarian on the motorcycle, Chris.
Right. I actually do remember that.
Crazy, right?
Right.
He's in this whole episode for 2 minutes, something like that. And I kept waiting for him to come back. But instead, the person that we get the most, apart from Wilfred Hyde White, who we'll talk about, is Arthur Mallet as Fenwick, the stagehand, mostly known, for me anyway, for his voice. He was Mr. Aegis in The Secret of Nim. Most people listening to this probably remember him as, who is it, Peter from Captain Hook, from Hook, the Robin Williams film, where he lost his marbles, right?
Yeah, sure.
And he also shows up in Mary Poppins. I mean, the guy had a huge career. There's a lot of people chewing a lot of scenery in this episode. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't mention old Bernard Fox. Just that.
Oh, I did.
Okay.
Dr. Bombay. He was one of my favorite characters from Bewitched.
You know what my point of reference for him is?
The Mummy.
Yeah. Yeah, it actually is. It actually is. What you pointed at me and you said it and you were right.
He's going to come back. He's going to come back when Columbo goes on a ship, and he'll be back talking and correcting the lieutenant about what is a boat and what is a ship. So I'm pretty excited for that. He and Peter Falk must have gotten along. Bernard Fox not playing as stuffy as the British guy as I thought. I really thought Columbo was going to have a hard time convincing him that there was more afoot here than meets the eye, but I like that he's a pretty smart detective chief superintendent of Scotland Yard. So I was pretty happy that he goes along with Columbo pretty good. There's not a whole lot of kind of going back and forth between these two gentlemen, but once Columbo points out that book and the spine of this book, he's pretty much right there on the same page with it.
Well, and that is the thing that I appreciate about this episode, I think, more than anything else is, and you mentioned it with the spine of the book, like the amount of like fake outs that it has and like the red herrings, there are a lot. Because at one point you're like, it's Wilfred Hyde White and he's going to turn him in, but he doesn't. And then it's like, oh, but now he's dead. And oh, they're going to get away. And oh, it's the umbrella, but it's not the umbrella. Oh, it's the pearl necklace, but it's not the pearl necklace. Oh, it's like, there are so many of those kind of narrative dead ends in this that work so well that by the time it gets to, and it's a completely hinky explanation, it feels earned, but Yeah, like it's what's most surprising about this episode, I think, for me, is that it's not this like fish out of water story that I was expecting it to be, which is why like I enjoyed Bernard Fox as much as I did, because he wasn't like, oh, this stodgy, this American is so stupid. Like there's none of that shit. And I was really expecting, when you were saying on the last episode, you're like, well, this is Columbo goes to the UK. I was like, oh my God, like I can only imagine what it's going to be like with this guy interacting with those assumed kind of people, British of the television, not British of the reality. You guys are a lot less stodgy than they give you credit for. But, like, that's the thing. Like, he's playing a very different character, and the episode is written a lot smarter than I was expecting. Not because it's Columbo and it's going to be written smart. It's just there are tropes that we like to lean on when characters go to other countries just for comedic and or, again, narrative structure effect. And they don't do any of it here.
No. And I do like this whole thing that they are sending Columbo over to either teach Scotland Yard or for him to learn from Scotland Yard. But either way, he is being picked out of the LAPD as being somebody very special. And that's why he gets to make this trip. So we know right now, anyway, that he's being recognized for all of these crimes that we've seen him solve. So pretty happy about that he's going over there with this kind of mark of approval. So it's not like he's there on a vacation and he just happens to stumble into this stuff. Even the murder itself, which we haven't even talked about, but even the murder itself, it's basically Bernard Fox saying, oh, I have to go check on this like family friend. There's been a death. And that's when Columbo's like, yeah, I don't think that this is a death. I think this is a murder. And it really isn't until they get the autopsy results back that they know for sure that it was a murder. And I do enjoy that scene as well when they're at this kind of the Diogenes Club and have all of the autopsy photos, and Columbo's trying to eat lunch and the coroner just keeps showing him all of these photos, and Bernard Fox keeps showing him the photos, and the way that Peter Falk will like put his head aside and just like, I don't want to look at this. I'm trying to eat a sandwich here.
Again, like he is always so good in this show, but like the comedy, I feel like in this episode is really firing on all cylinders. He's really funny in this episode, and like the mannerisms and the physical comedy that he does, I think this is the funniest the show has been. Like this episode is very funny in a way that like the show normally isn't.
I was glad too that you're talking about the stodginess of the Brits and all this. There isn't a whole lot of, I don't understand what you're saying. There's maybe like 2 jokes in here where it's the local constable who, John Orchard, I mostly know him from, he had a real brief stint on MASH. He was Ugly John on MASH, and he also came back as a Australian soldier at one point. So he can do an pretty decent Australian accent. But when he is talking to Columbo and Columbo's just like, what'd he say? Needs Dirk to translate for him. And then later on, Columbo's talking about some spots that were on a hood of a car, and Basehart and Blackman just have no idea what he's talking about. Then finally they're like, oh, the bonnet. Okay. All right. We get you now. So, you're talking about fish out of water stuff. There's just a very few of those. And I think those jokes land pretty well.
I totally agree. And it has, and maybe because it is set in the UK, it has the, the butler did it vibe to it. That like, I don't know, like, it's funny, we talk about this on every episode. We do more or less. It's like, the snobs versus the slobs in a lot of ways. Because again, like the Shabby Detective, what does that evoke? That evokes what Columbo in a lot of ways is. He's the force taking down these stodgy assholes who are so interested in killing one another that's all that motivates them, or they're capitalists, like, bone being scratched. But the British characters just do it so differently. Like, I love that it's like these just like upper class British dickheads killing one another, and he's just like, no, that's what they're doing. And it's like, but like the whole idea of like the butler did it, that premise feels so amplified because he's in the UK. But other than that, like, I kind of wish that there had been more of the UK-ness of it played up. Like, not the fish out of water stuff, but the other stuff. Because, again, he is in the UK. Like, clearly some of this was filmed in the UK. It's not like establishing shots of him somewhere else and then shots of the UK. Like, he's in the UK, clearly.
Though I'd have to say maybe 15 minutes of this whole episode is actually shot in the UK. There's the montage of him running around with his camera and taking pictures of the changing of the guard and all that kind of stuff. There's him walking along by the Thames and Big Ben going off. And I do like that exchange too, where he's just like, it's only 2 minutes slow. And then Bernard Fox like, have to put another penny on the governor. And I'm like, oh, that's nice.
That's my point. Like, it's just very funny. Like,
from what I understand, Wilfred Hyde White was such a scofflaw that he owed the British, like a lot of people left Britain in the 70s because of the enormous tax burden that they were putting people under. So like the Rolling Stones left, a lot of musicians and actors just got out of Britain so they didn't have to pay these taxes. But Wilfred Hyde White apparently owed a lot in taxes and back taxes to the British government. So all of his stuff, and I would say pretty much all of his stuff, all Richard Basehart, all John Williams, all Honor Blackman, all of that is being shot in the United States. It's really just a few scenes of Bernard Fox and Peter Falk, and mostly Peter Falk that we see in the UK. Everything else is pretty familiar locations, but at least they're not using the same houses that we've already seen them use, as far as I know.
It's clearly Southern California. Very obviously so. And it will always be that way. But yeah, like, look, I think ultimately the UK setting, they get about as much out of it as needed. But the thing is, and this, I think I may have said this the last time an episode was an hour and a half long, it does feel a little long.
Yeah, well, you're talking about all the fake outs and stuff. So we should probably get into the actual murder a little bit. You're talking about the whole slobs versus the snobs thing. And I guess the biggest snob of the whole thing is John Williams, not the conductor and composer, but John Williams, the actor who plays Sir Roger Havisham. And that basically he's been set up a little bit by Basehart and Blackman, that Basehart is basically setting himself up to be a cuckold and pushing Havisham into the arms of Honor Blackman and Lillian Stanhope, and wanting Havisham to bankroll a show for them. And they're just all about, we need this show to be successful and we want to do this. And so when he finds out that Nicholas Frame, the actor, is pushing him into the arms of his wife, maybe ex-wife, I don't know.
I think it's his wife. I think he's into it. Well, it's fine. Like, hey, not yucking anybody's yum. Like, oddly progressive thing for a show in the 70s. Like,
and when he finds out, he gets pretty upset, and then he's going to pull all the funding, and that's when we get this big fight going on. And really, this is an accidental death, which is interesting because most of the time we're seeing premeditated things. We're seeing people that are setting up all of these machinations. I mean, think back to Cassavetes and just all of the things that he's doing to set his alibi up and all this kind of stuff. And this one, there really isn't an alibi because they didn't intend on killing this guy. She basically clocks him over the head with a thing of cold cream and conks out. And there's that really odd shot where I was thinking they were going to actually show the body, which they don't usually do in Columbo. I thought they were going to show the body because the camera's on Basehart and it kind of moves over a little bit and then just stops. I'm like, okay, that was kind of odd. And then it's like, oh, I killed him. It's like, you did? You killed him with that cold cream? Okay.
Fucking weird thing about this episode is they kill him accidentally, but then they act really... Like, the way that they act doesn't make any sense with... It's at odds with the fact that they killed him accidentally. I feel like it should have just been, it wasn't an accident. Because, like, I get that it's an accident and they're trying to get him to bankroll their thing and he's got to be alive to do that and blah, 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 blah. But, like, that's because they set it up that way. There's plenty of directions they could have gone that make this seem like it hangs together better, because them acting so blasé about the fact that they murdered him, more or less, even if it is by accident, like, they act like they murdered him is more my point. Like, Richard Basehart is mustache twirling. Like, and it's like, you wouldn't be doing that if you didn't mean to kill him, which they didn't mean to kill him.
So then they set it up to look like an accident. And I guess if he dies accidentally, they get to keep their funding. So yeah, just bizarro. And then there's this whole thing about books. And there must have actually been a book that Basehart wanted, but it wasn't the inciting incident. It wasn't like he killed him for this book. He just brings up this whole thing of this book. And then eventually they use that to pin the murder onto Tanner, the Wilfred Hyde White character, as well as some other books, because apparently Havisham has this huge book collection. And that also tips, like I mentioned before, tips Columbo off when he sees a book that has been put down on a table and it could break the spine. And Columbo knows these are really expensive books. You're not going to do that to one of these books. And that's the first thing that tips him off, I think. That's basically when he walks in the room, and he doesn't know who the murderer is yet, but he sure does notice, boom, there's something going on here. And then he starts talking about the reading glasses. What happened to the reading glasses? Oh, they're in his pocket. Oh, isn't that interesting? Oh, what was he wearing? Oh, he wasn't in, any sort of comfortable clothes. He was still in his evening wear. And just, he really starts to put everything together pretty quickly. And then I think the performance that Lillian Stanhope gives at the viewing of Havisham's body, I think that's really what helps cement for Columbo. It's these two people. And then especially when they both give their alibi and it's right there in sync. And I love when he's just like, oh, that performance that you gave, which could be what they did on the stage, or really, I think he's talking about what they were doing for him, giving him a solo performance of, oh, and this is what happened, and I broke my necklace, and oh, and this happened, and we were arguing, and, just all of these theatrics, because these people are theater people, and they, like I said, there's a lot of scenery chewing happening in this episode.
I don't understand the length of this episode needing to be that way, because it feels like all these like bogus twists and turns, because there's the twist with the umbrella, there's the twist with the car, there's the twist with like the kind of like caretaker / mechanic, and ultimately they all go nowhere in place of an explanation that, again, we'll get to when we get to it. It just, everything else about this episode feels so fun, but they do feel like, oh, we need to have this thing with an umbrella, and about the water, and is it wet, and how do you put the umbrella down? It's like...
And I'm okay with all that. For me, what you could chop out of this episode very easily is the moment when Columbo comes in and he talks to Wilfred Hyde White and he says, hey, did anybody ask you about an umbrella? And he's just like, what? An umbrella? No. And then you're just like, what the hell's going on with Tanner, with this butler here? We just saw him talking to these actors about this umbrella, and that begins a whole subplot of, oh, hey, Nicholas and Lillian, I'm going to be your new butler, and we're going to be the best of friends, and here's these croissants, and, let's talk about money and all this. So him blackmailing them about this whole situation, and then I do like when Basehart pushes him into his cottage, just like, get in there.
Yes, that made it all worth it. But yeah, I totally agree. The thing that really sticks out is like it's a late in the second act twist is he's now their Confederate. Like, no, like, and it's not because it's not believable. It's just because, like, what's the point other than just padding out another 10 minutes?
And this is where they really become dastardly. This is when they premeditate a murder and they set him up, and I can't even imagine what they did to Wilfred Hyde White to hang him. I mean, that's a very gruesome scene when you see his body just hanging there, with show his face or head or anything, but just those legs hanging. And then they're like, oh yeah, we found all kinds of rare books in his cottage. This is very suspicious. And basically they pinned the whole murder onto Tanner. Now all of a sudden the butler did it.
Then after that moment in the episode, if they want to act like mustache twirling villains, go for it. Like, you've made the double commitment to go further down the rabbit hole.
To your point, there's a lot of stuff in here where it's now, oh, actually, Arthur Mallet picked up the umbrella, so now we have to go and try to get the umbrella back from him. And then there's the whole conversation of Columbo and Mallet as Fenwick also talking, and I'm like, okay, all of these scenes could be cut out if they didn't have the, and then of course there's the break-in at the wax museum. And the one thing with the wax museum that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me is when they break into the wax museum and they see that head of Sir Roger there, and he turns the head around and then the head falls onto the floor, and I'm just like, you would think like there's damage to the head, like it would be flattened in a place where it landed, but that never comes back into the script at all. It never happens. And I'm like, this is a wax head. Like, unless they make that wax really super hard, once it hits the floor from like 6 feet up or whatever, you would think that it would be flattened on one side, and that could be, there was a break in here. Because the way that it goes, I'm like, Columbo's kind of desperate at this point. Like I think he's actually literally flummoxed at this point when he goes in and he goes to get what he thinks is Sir Roger's umbrella, or sorry, Fenwick's umbrella, and it ends up being Sir Roger's. It ends up being the umbrella that should be there instead of the umbrella that shouldn't be there. And he's genuinely surprised. And then he does the line of, do you feel a draft? I think they must have come in through this window, and he's like kind of grasping at straws. Like, we never see Columbo out of sorts like that.
I don't get it. Like, to what end?
To your point, it pads out the story.
That's it. Like, that's all it feels like, because again, like, it's not that I don't like seeing someone get one over on Columbo, but we know no one is ever going to. And again, it's not that hurts the stakes of the episode, but the episode trying to convince me that Columbo is going to lose, quote unquote, it, like, use your time elsewhere, because there are parts of this story that could have been taken out, streamlined, shored up. I mean, I don't even know if they need, take the umbrella out completely. Like, again, like, it's just, there's so much of this that, like, the umbrella ends up coming into play at the end in the most ham-fisted way. But again, like, the way it's introduced, it takes a million years to get to the point where it's even, now it's a problem. It takes forever to even get to that point. And then when they get there, it's, oh, by the way, it doesn't matter. Until it does again at the end, and it invalidates all the other things they're trying to convince you of. Because, yeah, there are wax statues that don't come into play at all. And it's super bizarre that it doesn't at all. Like, I have a hard time understanding why they open up so many doors only to close them immediately.
And I wouldn't have expected that either, because the writer of this, Jackson Gillis, I mean, he had wrote a lot of stuff over the years, including Murder, She Wrote, and Perry Mason, Mission Impossible, Policewoman, Starsky and Hutch, just like a lot of Barnaby Jones, another contemporary of Columbo, a lot of TV detectives, Hawaii Five-0. So it's like, he knows mysteries, but yeah, he leaves a lot of, like you said, closed doors that were just open and then immediately slammed in your face. And so you feel like you're just walking down this hall and like, where the hell, the story is very straight ahead. So if you just keep walking, great. But Columbo keeps trying to open up these doors and go through them. They're all locked.
Yeah. Ultimately, by the time the episode gets kind of to the moment, like you said, where Columbo is bested, it feels like the episode wants you to be like, whoa, like these people might get away with it. And that scene would work if I didn't know that there was another 30 minutes of the episode to go. Because, like, there are no episodes of the show where he gets away, right? Where anyone gets away.
2. But...
okay, so there's a possibility.
There's a possibility, but does Columbo... well, Columbo knows these people are guilty, and basically he kind of plant some evidence, he can't. There's that question right from LA Confidential. It's like, would you plant evidence on someone if you knew that they were guilty? And Ed Exley's like, no, I would not. And Dudley Smith's like, well, you're going to have to learn how to do these things if you really want to be a policeman. And Columbo ends up planting some evidence on these folks and causes Richard Basehart to lose his freaking mind.
And it feels kind of icky. As like his explanation is like, well, back in the day when I was a young boy, I used to know how to flick marbles really well. And so he flicked the marble, He flicked the pearl as if it were a marble into the umbrella.
Apparently, there was a scene that is cut, which was filmed, and that's why there's a little bit of an abrupt cut at the end of this scene where he explains the whole thing with the pearl. After he shows how it's done and the whole, oh, sorry, look at that over there, and kind of distracts kind of thing, he flicks another one into a woman's cleavage. According to Dan Koenig's book, and I believe his book because it is so well researched. So, and I did notice that scene really kind of abruptly cuts off at the end when he's giving his explanation to Bernard Fox.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that was the patrons coming in that were all clamoring, all those people clamoring for the wax museum. Because that's what they do over there in England, man. They just get so into those wax museums that they're just all these people outside waiting for the new exhibit of Sir Roger Havisham and Lillian Stanhope and Nicholas Frame. It's this, also when you think about it, Superintendent William Dirk, and a dirk is a dagger, and Nicholas Frame, he frames Tanner. Are we supposed to get things out of these names here?
I was curious myself when his name was Frame.
I was a little surprised when Lillian just outright says Macbeth when they're at the theater.
Me too.
I was like, oh, okay. But then something bad happens. She ends up murdering Sir Roger. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe the curse is true. And then I kept thinking that there would be more Shakespeare. And yes, there are a couple lines here and there. And then, of course, when Basehart goes crazy, he just starts quoting a lot of Shakespeare. But I was really hoping for more. I was really actually hoping that there would be a spot on her hands or something, or she would get something on her hands. She would have to wash it off. I was hoping for a little bit more of that. And I was hoping for a little bit more of, there is no literal dagger in this episode, but I was hoping at least there would be a dagger of the mind kind of thing. And yes, Basehart does go crazy, but it feels a little bit late in the proceedings. Because of course, there's the whole, is this a dagger I see before me speech that Macbeth gives. And I was really hoping for a little bit more of that, but dagger of the mind is just basically, hey, they're in Macbeth. That's it. There is no more Macbeth to this story. We don't get... Actually, another thing that Koenig pointed out is that this episode was supposed to start with Frame going to a psychic. So basically, she would be the witches going to the psychic and asking her if their play would be a hit or not. And then there was another line that was cut out about this psychic that he had gone to see, and oh, well, she said that this would work out, and they obviously cut out that as well as the opening of it. So I was, again, they were leaning more into Macbeth, but they chopped those out.
That's a shame, because it's not that it's a boring episode. I think it's just a overly complicated episode. It overcomplicates itself for the sake of padding out the hour, and this would have been, 2 hours, right? It's 23 minutes of ads. That's a lot. But, also an hour and 37 minutes is a lot for this. And I'm not saying they can't do it. We've seen Columbo episodes that are over an hour long. But, yeah, Columbo just kind of doesn't really solve this one. I don't know how to explain it. It feels weird to watch the climax of this one and know that, the whole thing came down to him flicking a marble and hoping against hope that they'd go crazy. I appreciate that this is a piece of fiction, and so it's operating by its own fictional rules, but that's a mighty big leap. It's not just me. It's not just me, right? Okay.
No, and I will.
I want to feel like the guy complaining about things and be like, "Oh, this is just I don't know, not wokeism, but this is a millennials take." It's come on, Columbo's smarter than this. Let me put it that way. Columbo is smarter than this, and I've seen him solve these things without having to rely on this kind of bogus, I'm going to show you this thing that you didn't even know I could do. That's the other really problematic thing. It's not like he mentions the marble flicking thing earlier in the episode and it's a callback. It's a didn't know at all.
I will tell you that this was released as a movie because of its length, I imagine. So this was released, at least in Italy, as Scacco Matto a Scotland Yard. And there's some nice poster art out there. Tony Stella, who does a lot of great artwork for Columbo and a whole bunch of other stuff. He posted a couple posters out there for that out on his Twitter. I would say that this feels more cohesive, even though we're complaining about things that don't go anywhere. This feels more cohesive than what they were doing with Etude in Black, where they were just like, okay, you guys riff, or the whole, going through the autopsy report and talking about the death of the woman. Like, this was purposeful. Like, the writer actually was writing this stuff on purpose. It wasn't, oh, we have to go back and add 20 minutes because we're up against, oddly, Goldfinger. That wasn't the Pussy Galore movie, was it? Or was it?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, funny. So yeah, that Etude in Black was against Goldfinger, and that's why they had to pad it out. Or why they wanted to pad it out, I suppose.
By the way, Scacco Matto, do you know what that means?
No.
Scacco Matto means checkmate, which is weird that the title is like so different. Checkmate at Scotland Yard. Sounds like an episode of Star Trek. This episode's fine. I just wish it wasn't so long. I think that really is the biggest complaint is, and it's the overarching complaint, is if the episode were shorter, it would work better because it wouldn't have the opportunity to go all these kind of bogus places. It wouldn't have the butler being a bad guy because that, like, why? Like you said, like, he's a villain for no reason. Like, and we've seen this before where, like, in the Eddie Albert episode, he was trying to murder that woman. Like, we almost see him kill her, or is that the one where he does? There's one of them. No, that's the Jack Cassidy one where he kills her. But like we've seen that where it's like, well, there's this, like you mentioned, there's a second murder that, like further, like in, really getting into the weeds and like, well, I gotta kill somebody else now. Like, no, that's not what this is. Like, it's not even that. It's like completely out of left field. It makes no sense. And that twist feels just like the marble flicking twist at the end. It's like, what? Like, things are happening that you're not showing us and we're expected to be surprised and it doesn't feel earned. Even if it's a twist, it has to feel earned. You can't just go, well, here's this thing happening that you didn't even know was a thing. And it's like, that's not a twist. That's just a reveal, I guess. I don't even know what you would call that.
When you think about all of the padding that goes on to when he comes to the UK and just all of that stuff at the airport, that goes on for a long time too. I was having problems watching this episode, and so I had to watch the beginning of it. I think I ended up watching the beginning of this 3 times. So after a while, after the second time, that airport scene really drags. I actually just found, Chris, I found the Italian dubbed version of this. So I will be sure to share that with our audience when this goes live.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it is all out on Vimeo. And I thought, oh, it's just somebody changing the title to like hide the video. But no, it's all dubbed in Italian. So
that is fantastic.
Yeah. Man, I love this whole World Wide Web thing that they have going on. This is kind of neat that you can find these things now.
What? The internet?
I know. It's
magical place.
Kind of crazy, right?
I like that these were being released as movies. Like, knowing that, like, I'm not going to say that it gives this episode a pass, but it's a movie. Like, it is a movie. I don't think that the decisions they make to pad it out work, but I get why they have to pad it out. Like, and I get why also it's set in the UK because there needs to be a little bit, you got to give it a little something. If it's going to be a movie, give it a little, zhuzh it up a little bit.
Give it some jazz.
Yeah, give it something. Spice it up a little bit. Don't just have it be Columbo in Southern California. Have people think it's supposed to be in the UK.
Right. And there are occasional travel episodes. I mentioned him on a ship earlier where I think he fights a werewolf that...
Oh my God, played by Eric Braeden. Man, if you know what that's a callback to, hello, you've been listening to us for way too long.
He goes down to Mexico at one point. I mean, there are times where he will leave the country or leave Southern California. Of course, when it comes to Mexico, you can shoot that in Southern California pretty darn easily and not worry about it because it looks exactly the same.
I just want him to go to like Tijuana.
Oh, yeah. Columbo at a donkey show.
God, you fucking took the words right out of my mouth.
That's where I took Mo Green.
Columbo at the donkey show. There's the thing I never knew I needed, and now that's all I want. You know what, though? Ultimately, Richard Basehart, I think, may be in contention for one of the more fun villains in the show.
I agree. Because, yeah, he seems to be really having a lot of fun with this. And I really like Stanhope, too, when she's steering. Like, you've got Bernard Fox and Peter Falk there, and they're talking about having the autopsy on the body. And you've got Honor Blackman, like, behind the curtain and just peeking out at them. And, like, oh, I'm overhearing their conversation. It's just the framing of it, I think, is hilarious.
Her and him are both very expressive in the face. Had the episode on while we've been sitting here just watching it with the audio off, and the two of them are just, they're going for it. They're really going for it. And that's like the other thing, like Richard Basehart plays such the perfect pissant actor. Like he's just a pissant. Like I know that he's like supposed to be this famous, well-to-do guy, but like you can tell he has this massive inferiority complex, and it's perfect. He plays it so perfectly, and everything he says everything with such panache and aplomb, and it's like, shut the fuck up, dude. Like this, I love it. It's perfect. Like it's just the kind of person you want Columbo to go up against.
And yeah, like we were saying, they're not upper crust dickheads, but they are great dickheads regardless.
They're attempted highfalutin dickheads, but they just, they're actors. They're I mean, I'm not saying all actors are full of themselves, but these actors in this thing are stereotypes, and they're just up their own asses, and it's hilarious. They're great. Like that's why this episode is so funny, I really think, is because Richard Basehart, like you can't take him seriously. Like he's just such like just so expressive, and makes the episode a joy to watch because he is clearly, him and Honor Blackman are just, they're hamming it up. And we spend more time with them than we do with anybody else in this show. We spend more time with the villains than we do with the heroes, the hero, Columbo. So it's good that they're entertaining throughout. It's a little too much.
Well, Chris, on the next episode, Columbo is back in the United States. He's actually back in Hollywood. We are talking about Requiem for a Falling Star, where it's also going to be directed by Richard Quine and screenplay by Jackson Gillis. So kind of a repeat here. So we'll see how many similarities there are between these two episodes. We're going to get Ann Baxter coming in here, which I seem to remember she likes to chew up the scenery a little bit too. Like I said, I think we were off the air when I said this. I forget that Requiem for a Falling Star is an episode a lot of times. So we'll see if that's just because I don't think it's memorable or if it just is some sort of mental block against that one. So guess we'll check that out next month when we continue on our journey through the life and times of Lieutenant Columbo.
Isn't there a lone survivor in the upcoming episode?
A lone survivor?
Night Gallery, baby.
Oh, okay.
John Kalikas. He was the guy on the boat.
That's right. Right.
He has that great face.
He does have that great face.
Yeah. I'm excited. I always love Columbo. You jokingly mentioned Barney Miller just there for a second, but like Columbo and Barney Miller are such fun things that you can still go out and watch. And like, I enjoy this show immensely because Columbo is he's a character, folks. He really is.
A middling to potentially bad episode of Columbo is sometimes better than the best TV that's on today.
That's very true. I agree 100%.
So until we talk again next month, Chris, where can people find you and your work, sir?
weirdingwaymedia.com, where you can find this show and so many other shows that I'm on or work on or any number of things. weirdingwaymedia.com is where you can go for me. What about you, Mike?
Same place. Isn't that weird?
That's the way.
Absolutely bizarre.
Are you a film fan who loves the ultimate home video experience? Look no further than The Disconnected. Your host, Ryan Verrill, is your go-to source for the latest and most accurate information on home video releases, exclusive interviews with industry insiders and filmmakers, and has established a thriving community where every film and physical media enthusiast feels welcome. From hidden gems to blockbuster hits, The Disconnected brings you insider knowledge and a welcoming space to share your love of cinema. Watch every Thursday night at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific for the live announcements show and follow The Disconnected on social media to stay updated. Subscribe to The Disconnected on YouTube or on the podcast provider of your choice and dive into a world where every movie night is an adventure.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.